Hi, my name is Virginia. I'm a clinical nurse specialist working with patients with sickle cell disease. And I'm interested in encouraging people to get involved in clinical trials, particularly around sickle cell disease. I myself in the past have been involved in clinical trials as a young student many years ago, so I can see the benefits. Clinical trials are studies that look at new tests or treatments for humans. They compare new treatments with existing treatments. They look for possible ways to prevent illness, and they study the effectiveness of new vaccines. So, for example, the COVID vaccine had gone through a clinical trial. And they study new methods of diagnosing illness. Why do we need clinical trials? Now, I feel very passionate about this. We need clinical trials to assess whether new treatments truly work, to know whether it works better than what we currently have in terms of treatment, and to know whether a new treatment is safe. Ultimately, we want the new treatments to be both effective and safe. So they need to work and also be safe for people taking them. We need the new treatments to pass through rigorous safety standards. So no one is given anything that is going to cause them harm. The aim of all treatments is to improve health and people's quality of life. So how are clinical trials conducted? Before there is any testing in humans, there is a clinical trial phase. There's actually quite a lot of phases that goes through. Extensive testing is done in laboratories, working on human cells, and then subsequently on animals. Before research can happen in humans, these pre-clinical data are provided to regulatory agencies such as the FDA, which is the American version, and MHRA, which is our version. And only if treatment is sufficiently safe can trials in humans begin. Phase 1 is the first stage of testing of new drugs in humans. It's done in a small number of volunteers. So when I said earlier that I had done clinical trials, I was actually in a small group of volunteers. So usually between 10 to 20 people to assess their safety. And most drug companies compensate you for your time. I only got 30 quid, but it was a lot of money in those days. New treatments must undergo a rigorous ethical approval process before they can proceed to the next stage. Phase 2 is the next stage. The treatment is trialed on a slightly larger group of patients, so roughly 100. Now the treatment is studied for safety and its effectiveness. Phase 2 trials are randomized and blinded. So effectively, I'm on a trial, but I don't know if I've got the real drug or the placebo, which is like the fake drug. Phase 3 compares the effectiveness of a new treatment against the existing treatment. Even more patients are included in phase 3, so you're looking at between 100 and 1,000 people. And patients are randomized using a placebo. Good results from phase 3 generates data to apply for license from the regulatory authorities. And phase 4, so even though a drug has been approved for use, further surveillance and monitoring takes place to ensure safety and effectiveness. This phase has no fixed duration. So what is a placebo? Patients are randomized into a treatment control group. The control group does not receive the treatment. Participants in a study won't know which group they're in, so I didn't know which group I was in. I presume it was the placebo. The control group sometimes receives a sugar pill. To truly know whether treatment is effective, it must be compared against a placebo. Otherwise, bias can creep in. A lot of progress has been made with sickle cell disease. Some of this data is actually American because we don't have a National Sickle Cell Act. That's American. But you can see progress since the 1970s. And these are examples of some of the landmark studies that have been done around sickle cell that has resulted in some of the practices that we have now and the treatment that our patients are enjoying. So this is actually a very exciting time in terms of sickle cell disease management, which is why I really want to encourage people to get involved in trials, because without people volunteering, we're not going to make progress. So historically, there have been very few treatments for sickle cell disease. However, a lot of innovation is now happening in the clinical trials, and these are just examples of some of the ones that we are currently dealing with. So we have Voxelotor, Mitabivat, and we have bone marrow transplant, which we're all very excited about, and hopefully soon we'll also be able to have gene therapy. Personally, I would really like to encourage you or your family members to participate in clinical trials in sickle cell disease because it's an opportunity to improve treatment options for everyone going forward. So if your clinician asks you if you want to get involved in clinical trials, think about it and think positively about it. Thank you.